Hello, Tim from Fair Play now on the 6th of November 2023. So, people who read my email newsletter will have already seen my musings on this, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I have a weekly newsletter that comes out every Sunday evening around about 6 p.m, and if you'd like to subscribe, I will put a link to where you can do so in the description box below, so do check that out. But basically what I was saying is the BBC have essentially admitted that there was no Lurgy, or no Lurgy-demic at least. How have they done this? Well, there's a particular article that appeared just very recently, and it refers to the winter death rates in Scotland, and this article was saying how the worst winter they've ever had in 30 years in Scotland was the winter of 2022 into 2023, so last winter basically, prior to this one we're just going into now. So that particular winter was what I would regard as the first normal winter, if you can call it that, that there was ever since the whole Lurgy nonsense started. And it's a little bit strange, don't you think, that they are saying that the death rates in Scotland were the worst in 30 years. That would mean that it was worse than the winter of 2019 into 2020, 2020 into 21, and 21 into 22. You know, those three particular winters when there was this supposedly extremely deadly Lurgy running amok all over the world. So much so that we had, in this country at least, 3 ruinous lockdowns, mandates, fee mandates, mask mandates, and all of that absolute hell that we were subjected to. All of the gaslighting, all of the coercion, all of the sowing of dissent, and trying to get people turning on each other, people trying to get hatred generated to extreme degrees, and all for nothing. So this really, I think, is just a massive inadvertent, I should think, admission by the BBC that there was no Lurgy-demic. If they're saying, just think about it, if they're saying that the worst, or the death rate in Scotland last winter, like I say, the first kind of normal winter we've had, was the worst in 30 years, that means that the death rates in years prior to that weren't anything special, weren't anything noteworthy. A little bit strange, don't you think, as we were supposed to be in the middle of this very, very deadly Lurgy-demic. Now, it just doesn't add up. And like I said in my newsletter, when you're a liar, you have to be very, very clever. You have to be very, very careful that you don't trip yourself up, because it's all too easy to start lying, to come out with a lie, and then your next lie that you come out with, or maybe even a bit of truth, on the rare occasion that you might tell it, if you're a sort of a huge liar like our government and our mainstream media and the BBC actually are, but they probably sometimes tell a little bit of truth here and there. Well, you stand a very big risk indeed of beginning to contradict yourself. So basically you come out with lie number 1, and then lie number 2 contradicts that, lie number 3 perhaps contradicts it even more, and contradicts lie number 2 as well, and then you come out with a bit of truth contradicting it all. And this seems to be exactly what the BBC has done. So I'd like to ask the BBC, what is it, or which is it? Was the death rate in Scotland really the worst it's been in 30 years last winter, 2022 into 2023? Or were you lying about the Lurgy demic? Because it's got to be one or the other, hasn't it? And if it was the fact that you were lying about the Lurgy demic and you're admitting essentially that there was no such thing, well, frankly, I'd like to thank you, to be honest with you. Thank you for proving me right. Thank you for saying that my gut instinct was correct. Thank you for sort of, making me think that I wasn't going mad. And thank you for saying that I'm really not a huge, great big conspiracy theorist. I'm just an ordinary, everyday guy who just so happens to be able to see what's really going on and happens to be able to see line when I kind of come across it. So thanks for all of that. And what I'd like to do, BBC, if you're watching this, is in return for that favour you've done me, is I'd like to do you a little bit of a favour. And my favour to you would be this. Why don't you just try telling the truth all of the time? Pack up with the line, just stick to the truth, and that way you don't run the risk of contradicting yourself and making yourselves, frankly, look like the total and complete idiots you are. So that's my little bit of advice for you, BBC. And yeah, like I say, thanks for the admission that the Lurgy demic that supposedly was happening over the last 3.5 years wasn't actually happening at all, because it couldn't have been if the highest death rates in Scotland over a winter in 30 years was last winter, 2022 into 2023. So on that bombshell, as Clarkson on Top Gear used to end his programmes, I'll leave it there. Back soon. Tim from Fair Play Now. Thanks for watching.